Good morning, everyone. My name is Jag Patel, Global Conferences Coordinator here at the University of Riverside. It is with great pleasure that I welcome you today, the presenters and attendees, to our Global Business Research Symposium. The University of Riverside is a private university located in Riverside, California. We are an educational organization that centers on building strong global leadership and community development. The mission of our global conferences and symposium is to promote the global understanding among participants and to disseminate knowledge for the benefit of the people around the world. This symposium on global business research provides an opportunity for great leaders, academicians, and professional people around the world to meet, collaborate, and network together to move to that higher level of global leadership. So what I'd like to do next is to present our first presenter, and I would actually want to go over our program first so that we get an idea of what's coming up today. We will try to take a break here and there. We'll start with Dr. Nidhi Shah. She's going to be talking about social media marketing trends 2021 and beyond. And then around 10:15, we're going to hear from Dr. Akanimo Eshe, and he will be talking about leadership and corporate social responsibility in the Niger Delta, Nigeria phenomenon study. And then lastly, we'll be hearing from Ms. Jeanette Singh, who will be talking about computer security. And then, of course, I'll be closing with some comments and any remarks about certificates and future webinars that we may have coming up. So without further ado, what I'm going to do is go ahead and continue to our next presenter. And we have Dr. Nidhi Shah here. And I'm just going to a little bit about herself here. Let me go back. Sorry. Dr. Nidhi Shah teaches at UCR, School of Extended Education, the University of Riverside, and La Sierra Zapara School of Business. In the last 6 years, she has taught 26 business management courses in 3 educational institutions in the United States. She has recently developed courses for new custom programs in risk management, business structuring and restructuring, ethics, legal issues, corporate social responsibility, fundamentals of marketing and branding, and social media strategy for online micro MBA program. In the last year, she has earned 6 certifications from Coursera and Ripon Project certification for doing Gen Well project in February 2021. The Zapara School of Business external program on LinkedIn published Employee Engagement in COVID, Best Practices, February 2021, and Positive Impact of COVID-19 Pandemic on Strategic Human Resource Management in 2022 on LinkedIn. Dr. Shah has recently presented papers in our global conferences and symposiums and in performance management and executes resilience in global education. She aims to create new horizons of growth in the professional workplace by using core values, conscious, creative, commitment, compassion, and connection with diverse stakeholders. So we're going to go ahead and start with Dr. Shah here, and with her, we can hand it over to you, Dr. Shah. Go ahead.
Okay, good morning, everyone. Today, I'll be speaking on social media marketing trends 2021 and beyond. Next. Okay, so as you see, the global social media users from 2010 to 2021 has gone up considerably in terms of billions. In 2010, it was just 0.97, and now in 2021, it has become 3.02. So this shows that the trend is going up. And if you know, 2021 is still not over, so the number would be higher in terms of billion. It will be 3 point, a higher digit number. So it's becoming more and more popular, not just for, networking or social uses, but also for professional, and, people use it professionally also to connect with people and expand their business opportunities. Next slide, please. So as you can see, these are the 4 main pillars in social media marketing. The 4 pillars are creating a social media platform, incorporating different types of content, executing daily methods of operation, developing a call for action, and list building. So we're going to discuss all of these in detail, but these are the 4 main pillars, and the source is Anthony Fern, 2021. So you could use this in in corporations, in educational institutes, in nonprofits, in government organizations, public sectors, private sectors, for your own business, as an entrepreneur, you could use these pillars anywhere. They're applicable everywhere. Next slide, please. So if, as you see, these are the different types of platforms that are used in social media. One is the Facebook, which is the social and, building relationships, connecting with people, because when you connect, you establish a relationship. So that's very important, whether it's, whether it's for business or professional users, you need to develop that relationship. And for developing a good relationship, you need to start with the foundation pillar of trust, because everything starts with trust. If you trust the organization, if you trust their products, their services, their brands, you are going to use it and, become a prospective client. Next, the LinkedIn platforms, it focuses on career and job search opportunities. So although in the pandemic, a lot of people lost jobs, but I know a lot of my students did get better job opportunities in the pandemic. The reason why it was because their profile on LinkedIn was uh, distinct. It had a unique selling proposition from other candidates, and they became more employable. So in even in COVID, in challenging scenarios, you can get good job opportunities. Or even right now, there's this inflation and things like that. So the thing is, you need to be employable. You need to upsize and upgrade your skills. That's very important. Even if you have a fantastic job right now, or you're in business, I think every day is a learning opportunity. You need to see how you can expand your, you know, your skill sets. Very, very important. Then we have YouTube platform, and this is becoming very popular. And the platform, I was reading that the more you use videos, and they're relevant videos, you can market yourself, and your business basically, but the videos need to be of short duration. Then we have Twitter platforms, building brand awareness, telling more about your brand, telling the application of your brand. Another way of building brand awareness is you can have, people who are already using your brand, your customers, they can become your testimonials, and they can promote your brand and help build a brand awareness. While an Instagram platform is, it's really good because it focuses on visual making. So suppose if you're in construction, you can kind of say what kind of things you're actually doing by demonstrating it. Another great tool is storytelling, which is also a very popular tool, because when you tell a story, the retention level is much higher than what it would be if it's just a written blog. And we have the Pinterest platform. This is creating a hands-on experience. This is mainly for the female. 80% of females are using these platforms, but it's a great platform. So I would like to, so these are the types of platforms, but I recently got to know about another platform uh, which I could not include in this slide, but I'll just tell it verbally. It's known as a niche social network medium platform. So niche social network platform focuses on specific interest groups or demographics, and they're very different from other popular social media platforms, which I'm talking about. So basically, niche platforms are, your target specific platforms for professional industries, and they can improve your revenue, your sales, and things like that. Next slide, please. So here, whatever platform you use, basically, the key thing is the content. How are you going to promote content? Are you going to use videos? Are you going to use audios? You're going to use publication, use events, or you're going to do social media campaign. So in the pandemic, people did even a lot of virtual campaigns. So it has a wide scope. So I would recommend that you use all these, combinations of video, audio, publication, events, social media campaign to get a wider market for your business, basically, because if you do this, you'll have more customers that resonate with your content. So some people like to actually go and see an event, before doing the purchase of a product, service, and a brand, attend an event where you get more awareness of how you can use those products, services, and brands. And for some people, it could be publication, scholarly articles. Again, keeping it not very long, keeping it, max 1 page. That's a good size. Then we have the audios. You can have audios, you can have videos. Of course, the videos are more effective because they're visual also. So that creates impact. Then you can have graphs, you can have, other things. You can have a press release, basically, and things like that. So the whole idea is to do a combination of these, and it depends on the type of industry you guys are working or what type of business you have. You can promote it accordingly. Next slide. So here we have the social media marketing cycle. In the social media marketing cycle, the key is to optimize the content and develop a relationship by giving measurable outcomes, by giving the results. So how do you do it? Well, you define the strategy, you position your particular product, you create content which is relevant, you optimize that content, you build a presence, you build an online presence. And now with things have started opening up in US, maybe it'll get back to normal very soon. So, it'll be online as well as, actual, physical presence. Basically, you distribute your content depending on where your target audience is. So if it's in US, or if you're expanding in other countries like Nigeria or other places, you have to see how you're going to distribute your content. When you're distributing content, another very key thing is the language, because everyone does not speak English. So if English is not the first language in that particular country, suppose you're doing it in Japan, and so then you would use Japanese language to promote the same content. So you would ask someone to translate that content, so then they can understand. So, having a simple language that is spoken in that country is very, very important. You cannot have it promoting it in English, because then you get less people. The reason is that's not their first language. Developing relationships. So if you're doing a global expansion of your business, you need to see how you do market research of that country ahead of time, and see how you can promote the product and service, how you can integrate it across the firms, how you can measure results effectively. And for measuring results, you need to give surveys, feedbacks to see how successful you were. And even if you're not successful in one or two things, it's okay. You don't need to be absolute 100% great. So those are the learning points. So you can learn from those areas, how to, what didn't work, what did the customers not like, is there some deficiency in my product, is there some error in my kind of service I'm promoting, and things like that. So those are just some examples, basically. So this is a good cycle to kind of keep you in track of how you're going to promote your product, service, and brand. Next slide, please. So these are the types of content you could post on different social media platforms. One is the story post. It has gained more and more importance in the recent years, since 2020 onwards. So in story post, you can, instead of just promoting your product and service, you can connect it with a story, and kind of, because once you tell a story and then you tell about your product, it has more relevance. So you could try that out. You can try it out in your company with your employees, and then you could do it in social media marketing. The other is lifestyle post, that if you use my product, what's going to happen, right? So the food, like, for example, now people are going for organic stuff because it's more healthy. So you could ask someone to do a testimonial, and you could do the lifestyle post after that, promoting why organic food is more healthy versus junk food. You could have a quote post. A quote post could be a quotation taken from anywhere in the world. You could even create your own quotation and put it on any of the platforms, because it's just a 2-line or 1 line, and it has an impact on an appeal on the audience. Another one is like having entertainment post, jokes, and things like that, because entertainment is very important. Humor and entertainment, particularly more so in the challenging times, because people have been so stressed earlier. Now people are getting back into normal mode, so having a little bit of humor, a little bit of relaxed environment does improve your audience, who is seeing your post. You'll get more followers watching you. And engagement post, how can you engage your audience? How can you get them involved in social media platforms? Can you do a mini activity? Can you ask them to do a 30-second or 1-minute activity? That's how you can get them engaged. There are thousands of ways to get them engaged. Like in one of my classes, virtual classes, I made them do like like with one marshmallow, I asked them to you put spaghetti sticks on top using a tape. So they all did it. It was just an activity of 5 minutes, and whoever got the highest post, we recognize that student and individual, that professional. So those are like team building activities in social media. So that way, if you're promoting spaghetti or marshmallow, you could use this game and kind of promote it. So you do a game that makes it light, you engage the audience, and plus you can get wider audience rather than just talking about spaghetti or marshmallow, which is the old trend. So using gamification is another excellent way for engaging your audience. Next one is the social and results post. So anything that you do, any spectacular thing your organization has done, you can promote that. So for example, I had a bunch of professionals who did my course. So I kind of linked in with Ripen. And what we did was they did a project on, like community service and all. And that was very well taken by the organization. So they promoted on social, on LinkedIn, and tons of people watched their video and the social post, and the results were phenomenally excellent. Their company got well known, and more people started connecting with that company. And then the next is platform live experience. You can create a live experience. You can invite people. LinkedIn does that all the time. I've attended many live events, and they're really successful. How you can get more business followers and how you can turn them into prospects. Next slide, please. So here, the importance of content. So this is just a graph which shows you, when you have coupons, everyone loves using coupons because, it's kind of, you get a discount and all. And why not? You have coupons for, getting your car serviced, or for groceries, or for so many other things, or pizza coupons and things like that. So it's 51%. So basically everyone likes coupons now. Now what's happening is we are going more towards the digital coupons. So you get coupons on your phone. There are less coupons nowadays on paper. There are more digital coupons available, the digital technology taking the lead. Then we have product information, how you can promote your product. That's 43%. The comments and reviews that people write after seeing or visually seeing or using or connecting with your product and service, and so on and so forth, and what the current trends are. So I won't go over the whole list, but with the graphical presentation, it's pretty clear. Next slide, please. So this is the daily method operation, what you could do on a daily basis, or whatever industry you are in. So basically you have a weekly theme and initiative, and you can discuss this with all your employees who are working in the organization. So you create a daily task list for social media. So suppose you have 4 people, so you could give them 4 different things to do in the task list of social media. You develop a variety of content. What day will you go live? How many posts you will post per week? What is your plan for action for the people who respond to you? So these are just some of the questions. There could be so many more questions you can create in your organization, which is relevant to your business. Next slide, please. So call to action and this building, this focuses on content. So content is a great way, as we have been discussing in the previous slides, to draw the attention of your prospects for social media. Now, a call for action you can have two lists of clients. One is the suspects and the prospects. The suspects are still not sure whether they want to buy your product and service, but they are somewhat interested. But prospects are the people who are definitely going to use your product, service, brand in the near future or very soon. They're almost there, they're almost ready to use it, basically. They're just going to, they've got impressed by your organization and how you promote your product, and how you have interacted with them on the blog or video or audio and things like that. And then you share information, and free to call me or email me. So talk about your product and service. So what people do is, to attract audience, they use this formula for, it's called a lead magnet. People love free stuff. So the call for action is, the best way to connect with people is, you can tell them, okay, we invite you for a free webinar, or, or a free event, or a free show, or come and see our company. And so this would definitely get people interested and inclined to visit your organizations virtually or in person now, with the things opening up post-pandemic. So how you can work more productively in the pandemic could be one way of discussing. So this is just an example. So for example, Microsoft corporations, as you know, they wanted to develop their phone app. So what they did was they created a competition, a virtual competition, not just for Microsoft employees, but also for people who are in any other industry, for people in the age group from 21 to 60. And what they did is, they had to design an app in Microsoft, basically, which could make it more appealing for people to buy. And what they did was, they kept a price of $500, $1,000, $250. So the first prize was 1,000, the second was 500, and then they had mini prizes of $100, like 5 of them. So it was a competition, but in the competition, it was like a win-win situation, because the corporation got ideas on how to develop a better app on Microsoft. And for the people, they wanted to participate and became more engaged, because they were going to get a monetary reward. 1,000, of course, only one prize, but then 500, the second prize, and then they were like around, I think 7, 8 prizes of $100. So that went, and it went viral. It was very successful, and this happened before the pandemic. Next slide, please. Okay, so building the email prospects, building lists of interested prospects, building a list of your own, reaching already engaged audience, delivering targeted message, which is easy to share, easy to measure, and drive revenue. They're all connected with one another. We can move on to the next slide. So what do you learn from Hotshot Corporation? Learn that everything you can about your audience. Choose which network to use and which to ignore. Instagram, for example, demographics, 500 million of them are active every day. In Facebook, basically, right now, this is recent data, 2.13 billion monthly ones. In Twitter, you have 330 million active users, 45 new users. It's a big political platform also. Know your audience and who uses the network. So you can segregate your customers depending on the different platforms you have, depending on what professional background they come from. So if you have people who are in the political background, you could put them in Twitter. If you have people who are more professional and business-like, you could put them in LinkedIn and things like that. You could segregate your customers on different platforms and connect with them. And you don't need to have the same message. You can have different messages. Next slide, please. So what are how do you set goals? You have business objectives, you drive leads and sales, you have social media goals, you have metrics, you conduct an audit, who is connecting with you. So you need to keep a record of this. Keep an eye on your competition, very important. Listen for mentions of your brand. So social listening is equally important as social promotion. Monitor your conversations that are relevant to your industry. establishing your social media voice and tone. Next slide, please. Okay, so follow the social media thumb rule, which is a 1/3. Now, this is a great suggestion. I recommend it to all of you who are watching this, Zoom session today. 1/3 of share your post to promote your business, convert readers, and generate profit. So this is how you should use your posts. So this is the business one for generating profit. The second one is to develop more influencers. 1/3 share posts in your industry with like-minded businesses. Then you have a third category, which is 1/3 share posts with personal stories and build your brand. Then you share your content showing your followers. And in the end, you know your industry, so you're collaborating. So how do you position yourself in the market? So the key rule is to follow rule of 1/3. So, this is how you can promote your content to different businesses, influencers, regular people who just like your product, who are impressed by you, stories, and how you can collaborate and all. So you can, segregate them accordingly. Next slide, please. So social media trends, basically, this is very important. You respond to all the comments and mentions promptly. So there's a concept called real-time marketing. You respond to the customer not in one day, but in minutes and seconds. So if you can do that real-time marketing, you will, have a wider customer because you're responding so fast, right? So it's not even a day or hours. It's 1 minute or less than a minute in seconds. Do not repost the same message across networks. A lot of times people make that mistake. I've seen many businesses make that mistake. I don't want to name the companies, but don't do that. Use data to determine when and how often to post. Use the right tools for social media marketing. Don't overdo it and don't underdo it. Just use the right amount of tools. So using excessive tools won't get you more customers. Also, that's some mistakes some people do. So don't overdo it and don't underdo it, that you're doing it only like promoting content only once a week or once a month. So that's underdoing. And then we have measuring results and adjusting your strategy as needed. So how do you measure results? Because till you don't measure your results, till you don't work on your failures, you cannot go ahead in businesses. There are many companies. I want to give you an example, which you all know, Kodak and Fuji. So Kodak was a market leader for many, many years in the industry. But what happened? It did not make digital pictures. But that time when it came in the market, it was okay because people took visual pictures and things like got copies of pictures done and all. But when Fuji came, it came with digital pictures, and then Nokia, and then all these other BlackBerry, and then Apple and things like that. So what happened? They became more digital, and Kodak became irrelevant because they did not change with the changes in the environment. So you need to adapt with the changes. You need to adapt with the tastes that are going on. So this is how you have to measure results. What worked once upon a time will not work always. So if you have been in business and you have 10 customers and they're buying your products and services, that does not mean anything. That doesn't mean they'll continue buying your products and services. They can go to another competitor and buy it from them, not just because it's a low price, because they're getting more value addition in that particular product and service, and you're giving them less of a value addition. So that is why you cannot just be overconfident or super confident. Oh, I'm doing a great job. It worked in 2019, so this strategy is going to work in 2021. It's not like that. You have to, even if you have succeeded in a social media trends, you have to see how you can modify and improve upon it still further. And many companies don't realize it until they get a big hit in the market, right? So that's what I'm trying to say. And then the next one is for businesses that win, that do really good. They use storytelling as an effective strategy, which is one of the great social media trends. So 22.6 find it very effective, and 35 find it somewhat effective. So it's not 100%, but it is effective to some extent. So it's worth trying it. So all these tools that I'm telling you, I'm not saying you have to do everything, but see what resonates with your industry, with your business, and see what you can do and see what the results are. Measure it. So once you measure it and you do it, you know whether you're on the right track or on the wrong track. And that's how you can kind of self-check. So it's very, very important. Next slide, please. So here we have the 2020 social media services, which works on these platforms: plan, listen, understand, engage, and monitor. So you need to plan, you need to focus. There's a key word here: collective intelligence, and the 4 Ps in planning: content, which we talked enough about; collaboration, connecting with your internal stakeholders, that means all your employees; connecting with your external stakeholders, those are your customers, your vendors, your government people, and other organizations; then doing community, giving back to the community, connecting, because you want to give back, you want to contribute to the community. And how do you do it? By the collective intelligence of all your stakeholders, internal as well as external. Listening is very important. That's why God has given us 2 ears and 1 mouth. So listening is far more important than communication. So if you're good in communication, great. But I strongly recommend this scope for all of us to improve in the area of listening, because when we listen more, we get to know what exactly our customers and clients want from our industry. So this is something I think we need to give training to all employees in our organization and see how we can improve listening skills in order to improve social media analytics. Then understanding, once you listen, you will obviously understand better, where the customer is coming from, what are his or his wants and requirements. So for example, you have Starbucks coffee. If you are in US, people prefer black coffee without milk. If you go to China and all, they might want it with milk and little sugar and things like that. So the if you're doing food articles and things like that, beverages, you have to go according to the taste of that particular country and modify it. So Starbucks, what you get in US is very different from what the Starbucks you get in China, because it's more on the sweeter side, and they like to have milk in the coffee. So so that's readily available here. Also people have it, but not as much. Mostly people prefer black coffee. So how do you engage with your audience? You could ask them, you could do online survey on platforms and say, what are the great tools of engaging with the audience? Mm, so giving back to the community is one great tool. Designing social media tools, how you could help the other organizations, how you can create public events. With the post-pandemic, things are opening up, you could invite them, you could and do things like that. How would you monitor your progress? Again, how would you measure your benchmarks, that is that your standards? How would you send email alerts? And how would you monitor your results? I'm not saying every day, but at least weekly, very, very important. So this is it for this particular site. So this is on social media analytics. This is one way of doing social media analytics. Of course, you can use data analytics also to create more social media analytics awareness. Next slide, please. Next, yeah. Okay, so social media trends, these are the latest trends that I got from online. So productivity. So the whole idea in business is to enhance your productivity. So social media strategy that has measured metrics. Benchmarks are very important. So each organization needs to have a benchmark. Like for quality, you have the ISO 9000 standards, so you have a benchmark. So it's very important. You can't just measure, I think this is going to happen. You have to have a particular standard and all. So you can kind of connect with organizations who are focusing on quality benchmarks like the ISO 9000 and other benchmarks for your industry and things like that. And then have key performance indicators to check that your output is always higher than your input. Of course, if you're starting your business, you're at the birth stage, your input is going to be higher and output is going to be lower. But assuming that you already crossed the birth stage, You already crossed the break even, which is there's no profit, no loss, and you're at the growth stage. So at the growth stage and at the maturity stage of your product life cycle, you have to ensure that your input is lower and your output is higher. And then moving on to the next category, because when your input is lower and output is higher, you're going to make more profit. So that's how you will measure your key performance indicators. So this needs to be a thumb rule for all organizations. It doesn't matter what country you come from, it is applicable everywhere globally. The second one is social media trends are related with technology. Everything nowadays is related with technology. As you have seen in the pandemic, I mean, where people could not travel, could not see each other physically, everything we are relied more on technology, on Zoom, on Microsoft, other platforms and all. And we were still doing our business. So what's happened is, technology where people used to have a high fear level, people have started becoming more comfortable using technology. Uh, બંધ થઈ ગયો. ખબર નથી બંધ કેમ થઈ ગયો.
Dr. Shah, you okay?
Just give me 2 minutes if you don't mind.
No, absolutely. Take your time.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm sorry for that. Yeah. Yeah. So let me just okay. All right. So yeah. Okay. I was just thinking how to enlarge my slides. 1 minute. Yeah. Okay. All right. Yeah, I'll just go to my other computer. Yeah, I can't see the slides here. 1 minute. Yeah. Yeah. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we were always hearing and seeing you.
Okay, okay. So the next point here is technology, which is very important. So how you can connect technology with everything you do, whether it's promoting your product, service, and brand. And nowadays people are using robots. So that's another great technology people are using. Um, how you're using artificial intelligence and robots. Now in LA County, they're making pizza with a robot because a lot of people have been laid off in the pandemic. So, the robot makes the pizza and it's more accurate, basically. And the people went to the restaurant to get the pizzas, mainly basically to see the robot. So that's the impact of technology, which is happening more in the last 2 years. Rebuilding trust, which is 60% of people say that trust is so important. That's the foundation pillar for everything that you do when you connect with your internal and external stakeholders. And then you have 74% of your viewers who draw strong connection between watching a social media and then purchasing. So if you could show them a video or a testimonial or share something that creates their interest, the chances are they're going to buy your product use your services and move on from there. And the next is customer demands a better social experience. So just like you go on a vacation and you have a touristic experience, you want to have a better customer experience. So how do you do that? Can you uh, invite them for your company events virtually, or if it's locally, you can invite them locally to your company? Can you do social media campaigns, make them your participants? Can you wish them on their anniversary, on their birthdays? So those are different ways you can promote them, basically. Next slide, please. So the whole idea in so this was about social media marketing. This is my journey of what I did from March 2020 to 2021. So ongoing learning. So I also was not very familiar with the great technological platforms. So I learned about Canvas and how to use it, how to use digital skills and Canvas platforms. So what has happened is now UCR is doing far more programs on Canvas, not just for local students and professionals, but we are connecting with other universities all along, in Europe and in Asia and in other places, just using Canvas platform. And another thing, what happened was by using social media, I could get certifications because I want to update my knowledge, which in order to stay more relevant in business. And then the third is I want to do publication of articles on LinkedIn, which I've done, and I'll be doing more of it and using other publication agencies. The next is the application of course outcomes with the company projects at Ripen platform. So this is very important. So what I do is I teach courses online, because it's right now virtual. And then what we do is we link up with Ripen organizations. They're different companies, and then they do projects. So we fulfill the goals of the company, and the students do the projects online. So what I do is before the course starts, I kind of connect with the company online. We do a virtual conference, and we get to know what resonates with the learning outcomes in their organization. So we try to align our course goals with the company's goals, and that gives a win-win experience for the company because they get recommendations from the student, they do research and things like that. And then the last is we have developed a micro MBA program, which is self-paced, which runs over 11 weeks, and another 5-week executive program. So if anyone wants to upgrade their overall knowledge about business and how it's run, this is run throughout the year. The first program we did was successful. For 5 weeks, we had students and professionals from Spain and Yugoslavia and things like that. So it was a great hit. It's a new online program. And you could do it from anywhere if you're in Nigeria or Africa or any part of the world, or Czechoslovakia. You can do it from any place. And it gives you the tools of how to run your business more effectively. So suppose you have a person who has joined your organization and he or she only knows about HR, and you want to expose them to marketing and finance and things like that. So I think investing on their online training is worth it because they don't need to go anywhere. And once they get the business skills, they can kind of apply it in your company. So I think that's really neat. Next slide, please. So basically, these are just some of the tools I want you to use, which I have used in my recent years, and they do give results. Creating a professional and academic portfolio. So when I came to US around 2 decades back, I had my portfolio. I attended a career program online, at Syracuse. And accordingly, I designed an academic and professional portfolio. And, guess what? It helped me get my first job at Syracuse University. And I didn't have to struggle. It was so easy. So I think having your professional academic portfolio is not just having your CV and references, but all the best work and projects you have done, with other companies, or what your students have done where you facilitated the projects. and things like that. So you could do that as another additional value. You could suggest that to your employees in the organization if you want. Then you can design a business model canvas for your company. Only 50% of the organizations have a business model canvas. These are having 9 elements. So if you go online, I don't have time right now, but you could see it on your own on a YouTube video. If you click Tesla business model canvas, you'll see those 9 elements, or Starbucks, or any company that you want. And it talks about value proposition, customer segments, key resources, your revenue, your cost, those 9 core elements. So I'm assuming that you may not be having a business model canvas. So once you see it online and develop it, you can get more customers. And this is a really neat strategy. I've recommended this to so many companies. They've done it after I communicated to them, and they're, having a higher productivity and making more money and getting more profits in the industry. Enhancing your brand image on LinkedIn and Facebook platforms using content. So what I did is I did 2-3 courses on Coursera. Coursera is another good platform. You can ask your employees, they have very, low price programs. They give you certifications on those programs. And the advantage is you get to do case studies, and you get to know what's going on in the social media world. The next is you can design a custom business management program for your particular company. So basically, I'm not saying you have to use all these tools. You could tweak it to your kind of industry and make it relevant to what products and services you're trying to promote, or what brands you're trying to promote. And then because we are an educational institute, my background is more educational. So course development and course designing, I've been doing a lot, and even more now on the digital platform, in human resource management, in marketing management, and in strategic business management. And with this, I end the presentation, and I'll request, I would like to show you this video on marketing trends to dominate social presence that will kind of reinforce some of the concepts I've talked about. And then we can go for question answers. Thank you. Yeah, can you start the
Out of all the marketing spaces out there, social media is the one that changes the most every year, and it changes so drastically. And look, if you're gonna follow advice from 1 or 2 years ago, it's not really gonna work in the future. Hey everyone, I'm Neil Patel, and today I'm gonna break down 7 marketing trends that'll help you dominate social media in 2020. Before we get started, make sure you subscribe to this channel. That way, when I release more content like this, you'll get notified. And if you're on YouTube, click the alert notification. So what's the first big change? Its stories are going to continually grow. Whether it's Snapchat, Instagram, Facebook, or WhatsApp, everyone loves stories. It's funny, my friends always make fun of me because when they release stories, I always send them the default 100 or confetti or congratulations on Instagram, and I always click it just to show them that I'm paying attention and I'm supporting whatever they're doing. Short, quick attention spans. That's all we have. Did you know the average human has a shorter attention span than a goldfish? I kid you not, a goldfish. Hence, stories work really well because that way you can interact and engage with people super fast. According to Hootsuite, 64% of marketers either have already incorporated Instagram stories into their strategies or plan to. So you need to really get into stories. Even YouTube has recently added stories to this platform, and it's going to be something that's the default on all social platforms that come about. Even the new ones that emerge that haven't launched yet, everyone's going to be into stories. So make sure that you're leveraging them, and you can use the same story for all the platforms out there. It'll just be more efficient for you. The second trend, niche platforms are going to take off. Look, Facebook's big, Instagram's big, they've dominated a lot of the social channels in the last few years. But platforms like TikTok are taking off at record rates for youth communities. Business platforms like LinkedIn do really well for the B2B category or the business world. There's all these niche platforms that are coming about. Some of them are old, some of them you heard about, but more people are really going into these niche communities, just like Pinterest is really good for interior decoration and really good if you're targeting the female demographics. So you need to look at these niche networks and not just push them out and be like, oh, no one's on Pinterest, it's not that popular. It's still a multi-billion-dollar publicly traded company. If you're not paying attention to these niche channels, you're not going to do well. And here's the thing, if you already create content for one of them, you can repurpose that content and put it out everywhere, right? Just look at all the channels that are out there. For example, there's Twitch. That's a gaming social network. It's super popular. It's now $1 billion+ company that's owned by Amazon. Over 560 billion minutes of Twitch were watched in 2008. I don't have the stats for 2019 or 2020, but that just shows how popular Twitch is, because it's even grown to be more popular since then. That just shows you that these niche social networks are becoming more and more popular. The third trend, there's a new push for social commerce. See, at my ad agency, we get a lot of people talking to us being like, I'm doing e-commerce, we're doing really well on Facebook ads and Instagram ads. We want to now get into Google AdWords. This is the opposite. Years ago, it used to be people like, I started with Google AdWords, now I want to figure out Facebook. People are now starting with Facebook and social ads because social commerce is so big when it comes to Instagram. There's all these companies built off of Instagram and social media. You know Kylie Jenner? She ended up selling 50% of her company for over $600 million. Why? Because she leveraged her social media platform to sell her beauty line. That's how powerful these social sites are when it comes to selling commerce online. So for that reason, you need to push hard, especially if you're in the e-commerce world, on social media and have these influencers talk about your product. That's the power of a brand. Just look at the Kardashians. The fourth trend, augmented reality is going to be more prevalent. I was watching CNBC the other day. Technically, I watch CNBC almost every single day. And there was someone from Sequoia Capital. And I believe his name is pronounced Roloff. And Roloff was talking about how he's really big and wants to invest in an augmented reality or virtual reality company. Now, this stuff hasn't taken off yet, but you see Snapchat really pushing hard on this. Facebook's pushing hard on this. And although it's not fully there, it's going to become more and more popular in the future. Look, 76% of Americans shop online, and this trend is going to continually grow. We're used to going to physical stores and malls. We also do it as a way to interact with our friends. But just imagine, in the future, what's going to happen is we're going to all put on these virtual reality devices, and we're all going to be with our friends and seeing them, and we're going to shop in a fake version of Louis Vuitton that's virtual reality, and we're going to be able to interact with each other just like we were if we were in a mall with each other and all of our friends. That is going to happen, believe it or not, in the next few years. The fifth big trend is a rise of regulatory control. Look, data privacy is all-time high, and these social networks have so much data on people, it's getting scary. So much so that governments are stepping in. You're seeing big fines in the billions of dollars, not millions, I'm talking about billions with the B. It's already becoming really hard to get in front of the right audience because of these government regulations being like, hey, you can't only show certain people these kind of real estate ads or these apartment ads. You can't discriminate. Look, there's so much privacy information that we're all concerned about. You bet the government's going to step in. So you need to be more careful with the data that you're pushing out, what you're collecting on people, because the last thing you want to do is breach any of these rules. And it's not just on a country by country basis. Now in certain regions like the United States, each state has their own rules when it comes to privacy. The sixth trend, technology adoption will take off. Facebook has recently made huge steps with their platform Horizon, which is essentially a virtual reality world where you can explore and create an AR community. They've also released their own version of Alexa called Facebook Portal, where you can watch videos and audio calls with friends, view photo albums, display birthday reminders, and all this kind of stuff, and weather information so you can interact with other people and take that networking off from just, hey, on Facebook.com into your day-to-day life. We're now in a world where video is everything. Video is going to become more popular than text-based stuff. Everyone's going to want video-based content because they have these mobile devices and they have these broadband networks that are coming into place where videos just happen so fast, it's just going to become the norm. And that gets me into the seventh trend. Video content will dominate any other form of content. If you have text-based content you've already found on Facebook, it doesn't do as well as video-based. But it's not just Facebook. All the other networks from like LinkedIn to TikTok to them wanting live video, this is all going to take off. So if you're not focusing on creating video content more than text-based content or audio-based content, you're going to lose. Video is everything. According by Cisco, by 2020, 82% of all online content will be video. If you're not in video, it's now the time. Big brands are doing it. You need to do it. You have the edge. This is the time. Do it before your competition. If you need help with social media, check out my ad agency, Neil Patel Digital. If you have any questions, leave a comment below and I'll help you out. If you enjoyed the video, like it, share it, tell other people about it. Thank you for watching.
Thank you so much for your presentation, Dr. Shah. At this time, if we would open it up for any questions or comments that you have, you may unmute yourself so that we can hear you, or I'll keep an eye on the chat box to read out your question. So Dr. Shah, have you had any feedback for TikTok, which kind of really grew during the pandemic?
TikTok, yeah, a lot of youngsters are using it. I don't see a lot of adults in the workforce using it, but I think a lot of youngsters are using it for video games and things like that. That's my version, TikTok, but people are not using it here in US at least on a professional level. But I see a lot of teenagers and young adults using it more for entertainment aspect.
Okay, thank you. Do we have anything else for Dr. Shah today? And I did have on the previous slide her information, so if you would like it further, you can always email me and I'll get that to you. Dr. Shah, thank you so much for being here today. We appreciate your attendance. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and we're going to move on to our next presenter. And I'm going to let him talk a little bit about what he has accomplished and where he comes from and things like that. I'm going to introduce him here, and we have Dr. Akiyamo Aichi. I hope I did that correctly. But you may go ahead and take over, Doctor. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Patel. Thank you for the introduction. Hello, everyone. Good morning from Olympia, Washington. My name is Akanimo Eshet, and I want to thank the University of Riverside, the Global Conferences, and Dr. Raj Singh for the opportunity to present the findings of my recent doctoral research at this year's Spring Global Business Research Symposium. The title of my dissertation was Leadership and Corporate Social Responsibility in the Niger Delta, Nigeria, a phenomenological study. And as Ms. Patel mentioned, my name is Akanimo Eshet. And just to give everyone a little bit of a background about myself, I am an active duty soldier in the United States Army. And coincidentally, today marks 22 years since I've been on active duty. I am currently assigned in a 593rd Expeditionary Sustainment Command. It's a one-star headquarter command here at Joint Base Lewis McCord, State of Washington. My role is as a senior maintenance non-commissioned officer. My responsibilities include providing maintenance management and oversight for an organization of 3,000 soldiers and over 7,000 pieces of equipment, which include various vehicles and weapon system platforms worth over 100 million. I have also managed logistics and maintenance operations for units in various locations throughout the Army over the last 22 years. My most recent assignment was managing logistics for a NATO signal command in Naples, Italy. That role extended to our subordinate organization in Romania and Bulgaria, including interagency coordination on various logistics operations and projects. I just recently obtained my doctorate degree in management, specializing in organizational leadership from University of Phoenix. I'm a Texas resident, although I live in Washington. I do intend to retire from the Army sometime next year. And just excuse me for, if you can see, I just recently had surgery last week, so I'm still recovering, but I didn't want to miss this symposium, so I'm here today. That's all I have as far as my introduction, Ms. Patel. Can I get started on this?
Yes, sir, you can.
Okay, thank you. Again, the topic of my doctoral dissertation was leadership and corporate social responsibility in the Niger Delta, Nigeria. It was a phenomenological study. So the introduction, organizations have a responsibility to ensure that the conduct of their business operations and investments are done responsibly, and that protecting the environment and society also become a goal in addition to maximizing revenue and profits. So ignoring that responsibility can lead to actions that impact the environment and society in general. The widespread environmental impact in the Niger Delta area of Nigeria has been attributed to the activities of the multinational corporations operating in the area. A shift in paradigm for corporate social responsibility from ideology to reality emphasizes the need for organizations to understand and outline roles that positively impact society through their conduct, the conducts that meet socially and ethically acceptable standards. There are quite a number of multinational corporations operating in the Niger Delta area of Nigeria. Nigeria is a major oil producing country, and organizations such as ExxonMobil, Chevron, Shell, to name a few, do operate in those areas. Next slide. The problem statement for my dissertation was the general problem that I sought out to address was the issue of environmental pollution and degradation in the Niger Delta communities, which have been attributed to oil exploration and drilling activities by the multinational companies. The specific problem that I sought out to address was the insufficient corporate social responsibility programs and initiatives, or the perceived lack thereof, to address the issues of oil spills and environmental pollution affecting those areas. An issue that has contributed to the loss of the traditional economy in those communities for many who depend on fishing and farming as a primary means of livelihood. Next slide, please. The purpose of the qualitative study that I had was to explore the implications of insufficient corporate social responsibility programs by multinational corporations on the livelihood of the people living and working in affected areas of the Niger Delta of Nigeria over the last 5 years. Next slide, please. As I stated, I used a qualitative approach for my research. Qualitative research was an appropriate method for this research that I just recently concluded, because researchers seek to understand the meaning constructed by people, how they make sense of their experiences, and how their world is constructed based on their window or the world view and the meaning they attribute to those experiences. That form of study, it also places focus on the phenomena and a return to experience. That design afforded me the opportunity to explore the lived experiences of people affected by the oil spills and environmental issues in the area. With this approach that I relied on, I was able to suspend any preconceived ideas or biases and approach the research from a fresh perspective to understand the phenomenon from the participants' lived experiences. So that meant that I had to suspend whatever beliefs I had, whatever biases I had, because I also was raised in that area as well. Next slide, please. The central and research questions. The central research question that guided the research was, what are the lived experiences of the inhabitants of the Niger Delta area relative to the operations of the multinational corporations? To support the central research questions, I did ask two research questions. The first one was, what are the implications regarding the issue of environmental pollution and oil spills in the Niger Delta communities? Research question 2 was, how have people in the region adjusted to the adverse effects of environmental pollution and insufficient programs over the last 5 years? Next slide, please. The framework of the study was based on 3 theories, which I thought were relevant to the study. The stakeholders theory, legitimacy theory, and ethical responsibility theory. Jones submitted that the stakeholder theory serves as an umbrella term in aiding businesses to understand the relationship between firms and their stakeholders and the performance outcomes of those relationships. The stakeholder theory also stresses the importance of organizational involvement and the viewpoint that businesses serve as moral agents by maintaining the responsibility to stakeholders. Stakeholders in this case also includes the people that live in those affected areas. Just to provide a background into previous studies that relied on 3 theories. Move on to the next slide, please. With this stakeholder theory, Brown and Foster did mention that a broadly defined consensus means that corporate social responsibility was the responsibility of a business to society. Harrison and Weeks went further. They also noted that the stakeholder theory provided instrumentation for ethics and strategy, and organizations seeking to serve the interest of the broader group of stakeholders would be positioned to create more value over time. And Fernando and Lawrence argued that organizations had the responsibility of meeting the expectations of various stakeholder groups rather than meeting expectations just for a select group. In this case, we're talking about shareholders. Next slide. Legitimacy theory. Jacob and Singh did posit that legitimacy theory focused on how organizational structures gain and maintain acceptance from society through desirable actions that are appropriate within the boundaries of normative values and beliefs. Deegan also expressed that legitimacy theory was adopted on the central premise that maintaining a successful organization operation rested on the ability of leaders in conducting operations in conformance with community expectations. Those expectations, I would add, included ensuring that organizations' business practices do not harm the environment, which in this situation is in total conflict with the situation in Niger Delta area. Next slide. And with the ethical responsibility theory, Gardner contended that leadership required cultivating ethical relationships that motivate their cooperation with diverse stakeholder groups through accountability and dependability, and that through accountability, policies and actions that preserve the environment and protect the community could be implemented. Toringi et al. Argued that ethical leadership was a demonstration of appropriate behavior in personal and interpersonal contexts that promote socially responsible behavior. It reinforces moral ethos and ethical decision-making within the organization. The scholars maintain also that ethical leadership greatly influenced corporate actions, including corporate social responsibility. So they're both studies I just mentioned all drew parallels with the expectation of society from businesses, their conducts and operation process. In this context, society is the Niger Delta communities, and they are also viewed as stakeholders in the process I mentioned earlier. Next slide, please. Of course, there was a research gap in my study. The gap in literature, what I discovered, it aimed to address in the study the missing relationship between the host communities in the Niger Delta and the multinational corporations. Current literature on the issues involving the Niger Delta has not provided the extent of relationships between affected communities and the multinational corporations, which serve as an indicator of a lack of shared interest between those two entities and an in-depth understanding of community needs. Next slide, please. Limitation for this study, it was limited because qualitative study in the academia could be viewed as less valid than a quantitative research approach because of the lack of generalizability and transferability of findings in qualitative studies. The current global pandemic that we're still facing also limited face-to-face interviews. My intent was to travel to Nigeria at some point during the research and during the data collection process, but that became less of an option because of what we had going on, and we're still dealing with that currently. The lack of a robust telecommunications infrastructures in Nigeria also presented challenges during interviews, which led to delays in data collection. Next slide, please. The population and sample. The population of the study, including individuals and community leaders who have lived or lived in affected communities of the Niger Delta, had lived experience of the phenomenon, the oil spills and degradation of the environment. They were also willing to be interviewed regarding those lived experiences. The population was not delimited by gender. With sampling, I relied on two approaches, a criterion and a snowballing. Criterion sampling involved all cases that met some predetermined criteria relevant to the study. Predetermined criteria, as mentioned, included people who have lived in that area. They've had lived experiences, including age limit requirement and residency in affected areas. The snowballing sampling, it also allowed me to recruit participants, and then a participant went on to recruit another participant. I utilized those sampling strategies to recruit 10 participants for the core study. Data saturation was reached when no new information had emerged from the interviews with participants. The sampling involved a number of people representing a cross-section of the communities. We had public servants, we had people who were self-employed, we had community leaders, we had people who described themselves as professionals. And we also had a student as part of that group. It's important to note here that all participants had attained a level of education. At least the people I had interviewed for this research had an undergraduate degree at a minimum. And all of them had lived in those communities for at least 16 years. Next slide, please. So instrumentation that I used in this research, in addition to the interview guide, I used a field test to ensure that the interview questions could collect data that would answer the research questions. I sought out two faculties from the University of Phoenix with specialized knowledge of the field, and two leaders with extensive knowledge of the phenomenon that was studied and deep knowledge of the affected areas. They evaluated the interview questions for the overall clarity, to ensure comprehension, and to determine potential difficulties that participants may have in providing responses to the interview questions. The data collection process involved a semi-structured setting where I contacted participants through emails, text, phone calls, and through audio conference platforms. The interview lasted between 45 minutes to an hour, where participants were able to elaborate on their lived experiences involving the issues of spills and environmental pollution in those affected areas. Next slide, please. Data collection. So with the data collection, I recruited participants, as I mentioned, who lived or live in affected areas of the Niger Delta for the study. They were formally invited to participate in the study. The invitation included informed consent, which all participants were required to provide signatures indicating their willingness to participate in the study. I then conducted individual interviews, which were recorded. Before each interview, participants were informed that they would be audio recorded, and they all agreed, which made transcription of the data quite simple. I transcribed the interview recordings and then transferred to a password protected computer for analysis. Next slide, please. So I relied on in vivo 12 qualitative content analysis software to assist in the analysis process. Once all the interview transcripts were uploaded into the software, I analyzed the data based on the inductive approach, along with a frequency count of the themes. The software provided a strategic technique for me of examining qualitative data to review and interpret meanings in the text, determine emerging themes in the data, and sub-themes to inductively reach the findings of the study. Next slide, please. And the findings. So I reached 7 findings during the data analysis. So I had created excuse me, 10 categories that were derived from the research questions, which I then refined to reflect 7 themes. As the participants responded to the interview questions, their responses and the frequency of subject issues, phrases, and areas of their lived experiences, they all guided my identification of the themes. The following themes were identified in the study. The first theme was a loss of subsistence farming and fishing as a means of livelihood. As I mentioned earlier, most of the people that live in those affected areas of the Niger Delta, it is supplemented their income from subsistence farming or primarily depend on farming as a means of their livelihood. Others depend primarily either on either fishing or farming or both as sources of income. The second theme that I got from the research, from the data, was a lack of accountability and transparency between stakeholders. Participants cited the lack of transparency and accountability within the framework of the multinational corporations' operations in the area. They decried the divide and rule strategy and attitude that the multinational corporations have taken or adopted as approach to dealing with the communities. In fact, the participant had noted that the companies appoint community boards and handpick members with the input from communities to maintain leverage through lobbying. I thought that was fascinating. The third theme was insufficient infrastructure. Participants indicated that no meaningful infrastructure had been undertaken by the companies, and that the lack of infrastructure, such as road networks, electricity, improved sewage systems and bridges, had severely undermined the community growth and development of the Niger Delta. The fourth theme was economic impact to communities due to multinational corporations' operations. Participants, in fact, lamented the fact that billions of dollars in revenue had been generated from their land over the years, and yet most of them lived in abject poverty. They stated that the oil companies had suppressed their sectors, suppressed other sectors of the economy and industry in the area, thereby leaving them with no opportunities. The fifth theme that I discovered was environmental degradation and the threat to wildlife due to spills. Participants stated that the oil spills and constant gas flaring in those communities by the oil companies had impacted the ecosystem through pollution and degradation of the environment in the Niger Delta. The sixth theme, theme number 6, increased health risk to community members due to oil spills and air pollutions. Participants argued that there were serious health concerns within the communities regarding the constant flaring of gas and frequent oil spills. They added that, excuse me, that a lot of lives had been lost due to respiratory issues and other illnesses, a resulting consequence of oil spills and gas flaring. The seventh theme was safety issues and violence in the communities. They attributed, participants did attribute the actions of the multinational corporations as reasons for increasing levels of violence and threats to safety in the area. The oil companies' lobbying efforts through handpicked people who act as liaison created tension within the communities, which often resulted in violence. Next slide, please. So these were my recommendations for research or for future research. The first recommendation for future research, as I had noticed it, was to include multinational corporations in the Niger Delta as participants to understand their position relative to corporate social responsibility and the extent of their investment in those initiatives. The inclusion of multinational corporations in future studies will provide a different perspective on their efforts in implementing effective corporate social responsibility programs for sustainable development and improving the lives of people in the host communities. Another recommendation was for future research to investigate the impact of attacks by criminal gangs on oil pipelines. Further research will help in understanding the impact, if any, of the activities from oil pipeline attacks by criminal gangs and the extent of their contribution to oil spills in the area. Further recommendation was to conduct a quantitative analysis to understand the extent of cost associated with removing or cleaning oil spills to the Nigerian government. Organizations are heavily, multinational corporations that is, heavily subsidized in the United States. And Alain Brown did note that between 2005 and 2009, the US government spent nearly $100 billion on subsidies directed at energy production. So it would be interesting for future research to find out if such subsidies exist in the Nigerian context and how the government and taxpayers have been affected by that liability, if any. And finally, future research should explore corporate social responsibility initiatives in similar locations or other developing economies to ascertain or compare efforts by multinational corporations to understand the extent of the involvement in these locations or in those locations, and to identify if differences exist in their management and collaborative approach to social corporate social responsibility initiatives and delivery for those areas. So those were the recommendations that I made for future research. Next slide, please. And recommendations I made for leadership At the center of corporate social responsibility programs that affect the livelihood and standard of living for people who live in the affected areas of the Niger Delta communities in Nigeria are multinational corporations. All participants in the study, they cited the insufficiency of these programs or the lack thereof, which they viewed had undermined the region's ability to have a sense of share in the natural resource reserve that has generated record profits for these companies over many years. Participants maintain that the damages the communities have incurred are attributed to the operations of the oil corporations. Along that continuum, the recommendations for leaders are to explore efforts at initiating multi-stakeholder codes of conduct through a sustained self-regulatory model and accountability that are incorporated into agreements between the corporations and communities and as policy. This effort will be guided by the demands and pressures from the community for self-regulation. The other recommendation that I made was multinational corporations should focus on community-centered corporate social responsibility development initiatives to ensure the needs and expectations of communities are met. This will help in preventing misplaced priorities relative to initiatives for community development. The third recommendation, corporations should be guided by the stakeholder theory, basically in advancing a shared value of businesses as moral agents and to advance economic value, environmental preservations while promoting sustainable development within the communities. So those were the recommendations I had for leadership. If I have to go back real quick to the recommendations as far as exploring efforts at initiating multi-stakeholder codes, something has transpired over the last couple of days, which speaks to those recommendations I had made. Landmark cases involving multinational corporations. A couple of days ago at The Hague in Netherlands, a Dutch court basically found the Royal Dutch Shell Corporation as being liable for environmental issues. And they are being forced to reduce environmental degradation to them. Basically, environmental degradation, I believe, from what I understand, by 45% over the next 10 years or so. And there's a major event that happened where ExxonMobil, the shareholders, went against the grain, against what the management wanted, as in requiring that policies be made directed at curbing these excesses. So in a way, the recommendation I made kind of seems like it's starting to pop up in various places. Next slide, please. So the conclusion here, through the results of this qualitative phenomenological research, leaders and other stakeholders may create and implement guidelines that will improve corporate social responsibility initiatives and programs for people in affected communities in the Niger Delta. It is my hope that it can assist organizations operating in those areas to explore more efficient and tangible outcomes in sustainable development to improve the lives of people in the area. Finally, it is my hope that the result of my study will facilitate implementation of effective strategies that can reduce and ultimately prevent oil spills and impact to the environment and people. Next slide, and those are the references I have. And this concludes my presentation. Open for questions.
Thank you so much. I appreciate the presentation. Lots of great information. I'm going to give it a few seconds here, Doctor, to see if anybody has any comments or questions, and I'll keep an eye on the chat box as well. So just let's give it a second. Sometimes people need to get adjusted with muting and starting the video. So let's see. Okay, thank you so much. It was very informative and very interesting. I myself have a Bachelor of Science in Environmental Health. So
that's interesting.
yeah, so there is a lot of, concerns obviously that are just forefront, but, as individuals who are not in the area of learning those kind of things, it's still something that we need to think about as a society. It's not just necessarily if you understand it or not,
Right.
it should be on the forefront. So very interesting.
Thank you so much for your participation this morning. I really, will be curious to see how your research will develop when you include, a bigger population, a more diverse population. I know, obviously, like as you mentioned, with the pandemic and all the restrictions that we had, things were limited, but it will be interesting to see the impact from other areas as well. Absolutely.
Right. So one of the things I've also taken recently, made contact with the International Journal of Corporate Social Responsibility to see if I can share my research findings with them, since they have a much broader audience than I do. Perhaps with that medium, I can reach a broader audience to share my findings. I've also initiated contact with the multinational corporations operating in those in the Niger Delta area. Made contact with ExxonMobil and Shell. That I just recently concluded a study that I would like to share my research findings. Perhaps it could help them in their decision making and implementation. I've received a response. So basically, we are in the early stages of trying to figure out how we can come about that.
That's great. That's excellent. And we would love to have you participate in the future and share with us those findings. And I think that's
Absolutely.
That's a great idea and a resource to reach out to and see how that could expand also. At the end of the day, you've already done the work of coming together with these findings, right? So I think that would be appreciated. So absolutely. Yes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Doctor, how many multinational companies were there within like that area that you're describing in the Niger Delta?
It's a number of companies operating in that area. The major corporations in the area are Shell, ExxonMobil, Chevron. There is Total, there is Agip, and other state corporations from Russia and Eastern Europe also operating in those areas. And all these major corporations have their subsidiaries. So it's a number of corporations operating in that area.
Okay, great. So any other future questions or that you think that, other than the ones you mentioned, is that you'd like to approach at another time maybe?
I'm sorry?
Any other research questions extra that you would do related to your study?
Well, I don't have questions formulated just yet, but I want to continue researching on corporate social responsibility. Obviously, that is an area of interest for me. I want to expand into the psyche of corporate social responsibility, how organizations are leveraging these, so to speak, opportunities for them to communicate and leverage their resources with the communities that they're operating. So I do intend to go further into the area of corporate social responsibility. But this was just an area that I focused on for my dissertation, but I also have areas that I would like to go into.
Yes, definitely. Do you feel that your military experience has brought any type of highlight to the, what does it provide anything towards the research?
Well, my military experience, what it has afforded me is the opportunity to be in locations where these multinational corporations operate. As I mentioned earlier, I was raised in Nigeria, having been born in Texas, but raised in Nigeria. And my travel throughout the military over the last 22 years, my recent assignment, as I had mentioned earlier, was in Italy. So I spent 3 years in Italy, and I just recently returned to the States uh, back in November of last year. And while in Italy, I, made work travel to locations such as Romania and Bulgaria, and quite frankly, the whole of Europe. And I have seen how these companies operate in those areas, and it gives me, so to say, pause on how some of their policies are affecting people in those areas as well. But my focus was for Nigeria, or for the Niger Delta in Nigeria. Um, so that's the experience that I've had, as in seeing how they operate in these areas, as opposed to how they operate in their home countries.
Yeah, that's a good observation. And then
Yeah.
or do you still have family, friends in that area?
Yes, I do. Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I know at the beginning you had said that you were trying to do things without being biased and things like that, and you had your
Right.
questions reviewed and things.
Right.
And so, that does bring it to more of a question. You have somewhat of a stake in it because you do have people there. So that makes it, I think, more interesting.
Right.
Okay. Great. Anything else you'd like to add to your wonderful presentation, by the way?
No, thank you. I don't have anything else to add. It's just that I appreciate the opportunity. This is, I think, is a beautiful medium to for people to exchange ideas and become more informed.
Absolutely. No, this is amazing. So the platform we've created, I do appreciate how we can provide that opportunity to individuals who put their heart and soul into their research. So
Right.
very, very nice. If there are no further questions for Doctor, we'll move on to our next slide. And actually, we're having some technical difficulties with our next presenter, and unfortunately, we're going to have to end it today at that.
Okay.
So if there are no questions, we will go on to the next thing, and hopefully we can get the next speaker to come back for us. That would be great. I just want to go ahead and shortly remind individuals that we do have free live webinars that we've been trying to do monthly. Our next one coming up is going to be June 30th at 10:30 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, because we are located in California on the West Coast. We're going to be having Dr. Raj Sheen, which is the chairman of our La Sierra group, presenting some investing for retirement plans. So if you need to get more information, we would like for you to visit universityofriverside.com and go to webinars. You will need to register for this so that we have a name and things that we know who is going to attend. So just keep an eye out for more information coming up on these free webinars. We'd love for all of you to be there. And finally, we want to thank you for attending today. It means a lot for our global networking and to get individuals connected around the world. To keep informed, please enjoy our mailing list, and then stay tuned always. We always have different things coming up, and we have so many different ways of staying connected. We also like to post these videos that have been recorded on our YouTube channel, which is Global Conferences USA. We also have Global Conferences USA Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. So these are all locations where you can find us and have more information on upcoming conferences and symposiums and guest speakers. So at this time, if there are no other questions, I would like to go ahead and end it. And I want to say your certificates for either presenting or attending should be going out tomorrow. And I will be trying to link the video to YouTube, and you will get that link as well. The book of abstract will possibly come, or conference proceedings will take at least a week after, and you will get that as well. We've been trying to include the presentations in the book of abstracts, but since we have the YouTube site, you should have access to those presentations through that. If there are no further questions, thank you so much for attending today. We appreciate that you were here and gave your time this morning. Thank you so much, everyone. Please have a great day.
Take care. Thank you.